this is greater than myself.
Yeah.
Right. This is not about me. It's about all the people in my community, but also, communities of color in general that have been marginalized, that have been underserved for so many years, that don't have a seat at the table, that are underrepresented in some of the most powerful decision-making bodies, right? Whether it's the legislature, the Congress, right? And so, even now when I make decisions about, who to support or what I'm going to do next, it's no longer about me. It's like, all right, well, is there someone else?
Yeah.
Can someone else step up and do this? And if not, can I do it? Right. And that's why I think the representation is so crucial.
Yeah.
You saw it during the pandemic. You see it throughout history.
Yeah.
When you don't, there's a saying in politics: if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu.
Oh man, I never heard that one. But
yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
but it's so true.
Yeah,
right. If you're not in the room where the decisions are being made, that decision is going to be made for you.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
Yo, what up? It's your boy Rubino.
And this DJ in the building.
And you listening to the UpNUp Podcast.
Yeah.
Wait, what are we doing?
I don't know, just listen.
Yes. Welcome.
What it do?
Ladies and gentlemen, you're tuning to the UpNUp Podcast on the UpNUp Network. I'm your host, Rubino.
And I'm DJ man.
What's up, boss? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm blessed, man. You know me, man.
Yep.
Grateful for the moment. Grateful for everybody in the room, obviously.
Yes, sir.
Grateful for you being here as well.
Yes, sir. Likewise, man.
Yeah, man. I'm feeling good, though. I'm feeling good, man. For the first-time listeners, as I stated, this is the UpNUp Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, as well as the family members, right? We, some people call them listeners, viewers, that whole thing. We call them family, right?
Yes, sir.
Shout out to you guys for consistently supporting. And if this is your first time tuning in, thank you and welcome to the family. And as I stated, our focus here is strictly cultivating culture, and we do that by providing amazing stories of individuals, groups, movements, right? People who are breaking down barriers, right, in their own right, respectively.
Yep.
And not just for all of us here, but those coming from behind, right? The next generation, right? That's what it's about. I am excited for the family members and new listeners. We've been cooking some things up, right?
Yes,
we got some
sir.
surprises on the way, maybe in the next couple episodes.
Yep.
That will be rolled out for all the culture cultivators out there, the hustlers, right? Especially the hustlers. We're excited about, but we'll get to that when we get to that, right? But yeah, man. Outside of that, I had a moment today. I'm not gonna lie. I had a moment where I was reflecting.
Wow.
And I was like, yo, we've had so many amazing people sitting in this seat.
Yeah.
Like we sit down and talk to amazing people, right?
Yep.
And I was like, why not? Why stop now? Let's just keep going.
Yep.
Let's keep going, right? And today's guest, man, I would say someone who I would consider to be a true trailblazer, and who's blazing these trails in real time, while showing his community what it looks like to bet on yourself to uplift others, right? He's definitely a true culture cultivator who's keeping everything he's doing on the up and up. A little bit of insight: he is currently serving as the commissioner of the Port of Seattle. And after being elected in 2019, which he did in such historic fashion, I would say, if I could say so myself, and being, the first Korean American, not only that, but to be the youngest to be elected to that position, it's broken down barriers, just to say the least, which in turn has resulted in creating even more opportunities for diversity and inclusion in that arena, right?
Yes, sir.
He's someone who's truly paid his dues, man. He's impacted many lives from his early entrepreneurial journey, building a successful export and trade business known as 7 Seas Exports, to also working under Barack Obama and his administration at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, what more can I say,
Man.
right? Like Jay-Z said, what more can I say, man? We can call this brother a multi-hyphenated trailblazing culture cultivator. Let's just call him that. But what's even more amazing is his story. You like that one, right?
Yeah.
But what's even more amazing is his story is just getting started with many more chapters to write. So let's just get straight to him. And our guest is none other than the one, the only, the commissioner himself, Sam Cho. Can we get a round of applause?
Yeah.
Thank you.
How you doing, boss?
I'm good, man. I'm also blessed. It's been a good summer.
Yeah.
Keeping busy. Busy's good. But, I appreciate you all having me.
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah, man. We appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, man. Definitely excited to have you on. How's the day treating you?
It's been hot, man. This summer has been a little crazy, right? It's getting hot. I feel like every year it gets hotter and hotter, right?
Yeah.
And we just got to adapt. I grew up in Seattle, and if you grew up here, this is not what you're used to.
Yeah, definitely.
like our houses didn't come with AC when we were growing up, bro. Like that's something we're gonna have to put in all houses going forward. I feel like,
Maybe you can help out with that, right?
Yeah, it'll come through the port for sure.
Yeah. Man. So just to get you up to speed, and if you're not familiar already, we always start every episode with the quote of the day. Something to get the vibe right, get the conversation started. Brother man, man of the quotes.
Yes, sir.
What you got for us today?
All right, the quote of the day today is, "Excellence is to do a common thing in an uncommon way."
Oh, I love that.
Who's that quote by?
Booker T. Washington.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Legendary.
Yes, sir.
I like that.
Yeah.
I see you. Okay, I see you.
See, now I was like, man,
Yeah.
I like this one. So
It stuck
yeah,
out.
I had to bring it out for this episode.
It stuck out,
Yeah.
man. We're going to have to do a deep dive on Erm's process of picking quotes. Yeah. He never misses, bro. It's crazy.
I love it.
So, Sam, obviously, what we do here is obviously talk about the journeys, man, and amplify people's stories and the roads they went on to get to where they're at. But I am curious, for the listeners and viewers, now in 2022, being commissioner, and how would you say your role has kind of shifted from when you first came in?
Yeah.
And I guess, how would you describe what your role looks like now for
Yeah.
those who want to know or get some insight?
Well, how I would characterize it is that it's been really shaped by what's happened in the community in the last 2.5 years, right? People forget, I ran in 2019, in the fall of 2019. I got sworn in January 7th of 2020, and the pandemic hit us January 21st, 2020.
Man.
Literally, I legit had 2 weeks of just, normalcy, and then the pandemic hit us, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, my expectation as a port commissioner, as an incoming port commissioner, was completely flipped on its head when I got sworn in and the pandemic hit. So we were the epicenter. People forget Seattle was the epicenter. Like Kirkland with the elderly care center. And then, we shut down in March, right? Like just the entire state shut down in March. And so I was running a port that went from having, 50,000 passengers through SeaTac International Airport every day to 3,200 a day. It was crazy, right?
Wow.
And then we had, you all read about the congestion at the port and how much of a supply chain issue we had.
Yeah.
So for me, I just feel like it was drinking. People say when you get elected and you start your job, you drink out of a fire hose, right? For me, I felt like I was drinking out of a freaking waterfall because there was so much going on. The learning curve was insane for me.
Yeah, it's unimaginable.
Yeah. But I think the biggest impact was, most folks, quite frankly, don't really know what a port commissioner does or what that all entails. And the pandemic, because of all the issues around airports and seaports, there was a new, interest in what the port does. Why is my stuff not arriving on time?
Yeah.
Well, what is this inflation thing we're talking about? Why are the cost of goods going up 8, 9, 20% right now, right? That was a lot of that had, a lot of the supply chain issues had to do with the port. And so there was this heightened awareness of the port. But at the same time, as you all know, there was a racial reckoning, anti-Asian hate from this COVID pandemic. Never would have imagined that as a port commissioner, I would have entered a space where I had a bigger role in advocating for my community in these times, and showing solidarity and allyship to the Black community when we were going through the Black Lives Matter movement, and then having to show for my own community when we saw all that anti-Asian hate. And so, the port commissioner is not a very well-known position, but people do know that it's an elected position, and that it's a position of leadership. And so I feel like a lot of that advocacy and that solidarity support across communities fell on my shoulders, and that's, I think, was kind of the biggest curveball since I was elected.
No, you definitely broke that down, man.
Yeah, thank you for breaking it down.
I like the analogy of the from instead of a water hose, waterfall, because
it was insane.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But you're still here.
Yeah.
And you're doing the thing, man.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy 3 years. But
Time flies.
Exactly. It's a 4-year term. I'm already 3 years in, and I feel like I just started, right? We went through some sort of weird time loop where everything fast forwarded. Everything accelerated.
I agree with that.
And it just feels weird that I'm 3 years older and I'm already going to be up next year for another term. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's insane.
So, well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I just kind of want to take it back to the beginning of the journey. So
for sure.
Let's talk about your upbringing, background, just growing up.
Yeah. So my parents are Korean. They immigrated from South Korea in the late 80s. and actually they immigrated to the United States through the Port of Seattle.
Wow.
So it's really cool for my family and my parents
right
for to go from immigrating through the Port of Seattle to then running the Port of Seattle. Right. It's a true full circle moment for our family.
Definitely.
My parents were dry cleaners. Right, very, very blue collar. I joke, actually. I say, my parents grew up scrubbing white collars for a living. Today, I wear white collars for a living.
Wow.
Again, full circle, right? That's the truth, and feel very blessed. Dry cleaning is very modest work. It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. But in the '90s and the early 2000s, it was good work. It was an honest day's work. And it was an honest day's living. Right. And it was enough to provide for my brother and I, and put us through school and really provide for us. Right. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I think part of what drives me as a politician, as a leader, is kind of making sure I pay it forward and provide those opportunities, the so-called American dream, to those who are coming up next. Right. And, if there is anything that kind of defines me as a leader, it's how do I pay it forward and make sure that the opportunities that I had growing up are there for kids my age, kids that are growing up today in our communities.
That's real. That's real, man. I'm also curious, being Korean American, like I think everybody can attest to this if you kind of have that first generation immigrant experience. But like, how was it for you? I guess I call it the great immigrant balance. I don't know if you want to coin that. I don't know. But like, how was it for you culturally and socially to kind of grow up in America and find your way, navigate?
Yeah, I mean, to be candid, my parents were so, we call it FOB, fresh off the boat, right? That, in the household, we spoke Korean. We ate Korean dinners, and like it was very traditional. And then obviously when I was outside the house, I had to somewhat assimilate. So I feel like I always grew up with like this, two identities, right? In school, I'd try to be as, American as possible. And then when I come home, I'm speaking Korean, I'm eating Korean food. And so that has always been kind of how it wasn't until maybe after I graduated from high school and left the house that I really started to find my identity as a Korean American, independent of my parents and independent of my culture, right? But there was definitely, moments as a child where I would think, like, where do I fit in here, right? And if you grew up in Seattle, I feel like Seattle maybe has become a little more diverse than when we were kids because of all the transplants and people moving here from working in tech and whatnot. But like Seattle was really white, like especially in the 90s, right? Like I was like the only Korean kid in my elementary school, right? And so for me, not having others that are like me in my vicinity was a challenge in my day to day. I think one blessing that I had was my parents were very heavily involved in the church, and they were very active in the Korean church. And so I did, every Sunday would go to church, and I would meet other Korean kids, like I am a youth group and whatnot. And that certainly helped me kind of validate my identity, because they're, when you meet people who are going through similar experiences, it kind of validates, your experience. And so I think that was a huge part of my upbringing. And if you ask anyone in the community today, I wear my Korean heritage on my sleeve.
Come on.
I don't not timid about it anymore. There was definitely times growing up where I would try to assimilate. I mean, you talk to an Asian or you talk to a Korean, every Asian kid has their lunchbox moment. That's what we call it, right? Mom makes you lunch, you take it to school, you open up the lunchbox and it smells. To the white kids, they're like, what is that?
What is that?
Kimchi or whatever. And it's like, what is that, right? And I distinctly remember when I was a kid, one of the girls sitting next to me saw my lunchbox, made a weird sound, and was like, oh, what is that? And I straight up just took it to the trash and threw it away. Didn't even eat it because I was so embarrassed.
We've all been there. We've all been there. Them potlucks, man. Potlucks, man. It wasn't friendly, man.
And actually, after that experience, I told my mom I didn't want sack lunch anymore. I wanted to eat school lunches. Right? And so my parents would just, have me eat school lunches after that. There's still an element of guilt today when I think about those moments. Obviously I was young and naive and didn't know better.
For sure.
But in hindsight, if I had that chance to replay that moment, knowing what I know now, I'd be like, deal with it.
Exactly.
But that's the confidence, though. We've built our confidence over time.
That's right.
The longer we've been here and the longer we've contributed.
That's right.
That's good, bro. That's good stuff.
So, like, growing up, like,
Yeah.
what were you, like, interested in? What was, like, your early interests and, like, influences?
Yeah, I grew up. I mean, there weren't a lot of like Asian role models growing up, right, and stuff like that. I mean, actually, I should take that back. There were, in the sense that I think, growing up for me, there's a guy named Gary Locke, former governor of Washington.
Yeah.
That was really rare if you think
Yeah.
about it. And I think back, maybe subconsciously, like seeing an Asian governor, maybe planted a seed in my head when I was younger that like that's achievable.
Yeah.
Right, like
Representation.
representation, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that an Asian American male could run for governor, win, and do it for a long time. But to be candid, I didn't grow up with an interest in politics or anything like that. I was just I would say I was a above average student. Wasn't the best student, but above average. Kind of prototypical family that emphasized school. My parents were a little different in that they didn't really impose certain careers on me necessarily. Like they weren't like, you got to be a doctor or a lawyer or engineer, right? They really were like, you should explore what you want and really find your own path. But yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up with a lot of Asian role models. It wasn't really until maybe college that I started to really find folks who I've considered mentors and stuff like that. Yeah. I love sports, growing up.
Yeah, you got a little jump shot. I know you got that jump shot, man.
Dude, I watched, the Space Jam era.
Yeah.
Played a lot of basketball growing up on the playground and played a little organized ball in middle school. But in high school, my parents cut that off real quick. Like, focus on your stuff. And sometimes I wonder, man, what if I went like neck deep in sports? What would have happened? But no, I other than that, it's pretty par for the course.
Yeah, I'm curious because you mentioned college, and I think we talk about this all the time, especially for anybody who's listening or watching that is about to embark on that journey of academia and go into college. Like, it's a time, man.
Yeah,
it's definitely a time. And so for you, you studied at American University.
That's right.
And as well as the London School of Economics.
That's right.
What would you say about the kid who came in versus the man who exited?
Yeah.
How would you describe the two?
Yeah.
From your perspective.
I went through a tremendous amount of personal growth during those times when I was in Washington D.C. and also in London. I think when you grow up, it's not even like unique to Seattle, but really like in my community, right? There's kind of like two people, right? There's the kids who grew up locally, went to the U, right, and then did all the routine stuff like played basketball on Thursdays at church and stayed within kind of the community. And then there are those kids who kind of left, right, who went out of state or and I think there's a tremendous amount of growth there because you're forcing yourself into situations that make you uncomfortable or force you to be more independent, right? And so me leaving my family, and going to the East Coast, I was living in, with roommates for the first time that weren't my family, right? I was going to school, a lot of kids who go to the UW, would commute to school every day, right? Or stay close to their family where they can go back on weekends.
The environment didn't really change.
The environment didn't change, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, that's not just an analogy for folks, who are local. I feel like that's an analogy for life. Like sometimes you got to put yourself in those environments that really stretch you and push you. And, I had friends in college who went to UW who would take their laundry back to their house every weekend, and their mom would do the laundry and bring it back to the dorms, right? Right? Like, whereas, I didn't have that, right? And so, I had to learn, like, how do I separate this?
It's those little things,
Those little things add up, right?
And
so for me, like, being in D.C., kind of having that distance from my family, who would have done anything and everything for me if I was still in Seattle. Right? That's just how my parents are. Like, my mom, I promise you, if I went to UW, my mom would have brought me food every day or every week and stuffed my fridge with food, right? Like I would never have had to cook, right? It's just little stuff like that that adds up, right? And so there was a level of independence and growth that I had to go through. And that's part of why actually I went to grad school in London as well, is because I wanted that international experience as well. Just get out of the country and live in a different country for a little bit and experience that different culture, right? And trust me, like, when I was in London, it's different. Like racism is different in UK. It's really funny. It's and so experiencing all that and then bringing it back home. I think it paid tremendous dividends.
I can imagine, bro. Definitely.
Yeah, because when I seen that, I was like, man, a lot of people they probably just stay in the States, but you experienced both. So I was just like, man, that's must have been a hell of an experience. You know?
Yeah, and you know, like in hindsight, it's not like I knew that at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly, when I chose to go to DC, I just wanted to get away from my parents.
Yeah.
Right. But when you think about it, you know, hindsight is 20/20. You think about it, and you think about all your experiences from being away. You know, that's how I feel. Like, oh man, like I don't think I would have done X, Y, and Z had I not, you know, left the city.
Yeah.
Right? And so
everything's relative, though.
100%.
I think everything's relative to your journey.
Absolutely.
And like I said, sometimes in real time, we don't really even know what this is going to lead to.
Yeah.
But and then you look up, you know what I mean, however many years later, and you're like, oh, okay, this all makes sense.
Yeah.
It all connects. And I'm curious because you did get a taste of the political space prior to even being working in the Port of Seattle, working under Obama's administration as a political appointee. Like, how did that come about? Like, how did you get, like, you know, they don't just pick anybody. I'm saying, like, but like, take us through that experience and saying, yo, I'm here now. Like, how did you get into that?
Yeah. So, when I went to grad school in London, my goal was to actually join the Foreign Service and become a diplomat. Okay. You know, I wanted to be a diplomat. And so that's why after grad school, I went back to DC. I ended up working for a member of Congress on, you know, foreign affairs, trade, defense issues, right? Okay. And so worked for a member of Congress. I think 9 months in, I get a call, and it's so funny because like when the White House calls you, like you don't know it's the White House, obviously, right? It actually says it's a block number. It's like it's a number that it doesn't even show what number it is, right? And so I was like, what is this, right? So I call, so I answered the phone, and the guy goes, hey, it's called the PPO office, Office of Presidential Personnel. It's kind of like the recruitment office of the White House, right? The headhunters or whatever. Okay. And they're like, hey, like we got your resume from somebody who recommended you, wondering if you were interested in working for this administration. And I was like, I thought I was getting punked. Honestly, I honestly, like, you know, it's so casual, right? Just call a guy and be like, hey, you want to work for Obama? Yeah. And so, like, you know, I was like, I literally, my answer at the time was like, does anyone say no to that question?
Yeah, no.
Right? And so, like, it was a really interesting process because they actually kind of pick you first, and then you go through these interviews of different spots that you could potentially work. And so given what I wanted to do, I wanted to go into foreign policy and all that stuff. I was kind of looking at, you know, State Department or, you know, U.S. Department of Commerce or whatever. Yeah. I ended up at this weird agency called the General Services Administration, GSA. Like, no one's heard of it. Yeah. You know, I remember being on the call with the White House liaison there and, like, Googling what GSA does because I was like, I have no idea what this is, right?
I'm in the building now.
Yeah. I have no idea what you guys do. But it was a crazy process. It took a little while. It took about 3 months, and I was kind of like in this weird waiting period. You know, I think one thing that the Obama administration did so well is that they were so good about diversity within the administration. And I think that's just like is natural. You know, the first black president. You know, the administration was very conscious about who they wanted to work in the administration, and those folks over at PPO were constantly looking for POC candidates to bring into the administration. And, you know, I think maybe, I don't know if it was my education or if it was my experience on working for the member of Congress, someone somewhere, I still have no idea who it is.
So you don't know who recommended you?
I legit do not know for sure.
We need to find this person.
I know, because I owe them.
Hopefully they watch this episode.
I owe them so much, man. I mean, I have a few guesses who it might be.
Yeah,
but
you should hire the PPO to go find them.
That's right. Or like just go back. Yeah, you know, I should just go back to. I mean, they're gone now, but from that administration. But like, just go back to the recruiter and be like, hey, like, where exactly did you get my resume?
Yeah, that'd be dope.
But it's a very unscientific process, you know. And I went through a bunch of interviews. One of the agents appointed me, so I worked in the administration for the last 2 years. And I seriously, like, you know, worked for some of the smartest minds I've ever had the privilege of knowing. I still keep in contact with many of them, and the Obama family is the Obama family. We all, you know, there are a lot of there are a lot of people in Seattle who are former Obama appointees. There's a group of us,
Nice.
And so we all keep in touch, and
that's amazing.
It's almost cultic. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. I mean, it was historic for many of us.
And being a part of history, sometimes you don't even know it in the moment, but
yeah, man.
Looking back on it now, man.
Yeah, no, so it was a great experience. The process wasn't like, you know, everyone asks me, how did you do it? Or like, how do I get an appointment? That's what they ask, like, how do I do what you did? It's like, look, there's no like one size fits all way of doing it. Like there's different ways. Like most people, when they work for a presidential administration, they worked on the campaign. right? They were volunteers or did work on the campaign, and then when they transition and get elected, they move over to the official side. That wasn't me. I never worked on the Obama campaign. I never volunteered for Obama. But it was really, whoever that angel who put my resume on someone's desk.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, dude.
Shout out to them for real.
Again, an opportunity, right? Someone paying it forward and saying, "Hey, Sam's got some potential."
But you were ready for it too. I think that's a big thing too. Sometimes, man, like it's about being prepared,
dude.
Because if you're not prepared, like, you know what I'm saying,
dude, that's
it won't matter.
What's that definition? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that's 100% true, right? Like, yes, people can be presented with opportunities, but if you're not ready, you're not ready.
Yeah.
Right? And I guess like that's kind of my MO is like opportunity. Right?
Yeah, I believe like luck is attracted to preparation.
Yeah.
Like I think luck seeks out those who are prepared, and it comes off as lucky, but you were ready, man.
It was probably, honestly, it was just like a conversation I was having, casually with somebody. I mentioned, I'd love to work for the administration.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they were like, they may not have told me straight up, but they might have just slipped my resume somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like and that's why you never know. You always got to be looking out, and seeking those opportunities.
No, that's real.
Definitely, man.
That's real, man.
So, we'll transition into 7 Seas Export. What pretty much sparked that idea for you?
Yeah. So, my term, not my term, Obama's term ended in January of 2019. 2017. And it was a tough time for Obama people. You remember, Trump got elected.
Yeah.
He got sworn in. All these Obama people left because, when you get appointed, you only stay as long as the term of the president that you were appointed by. But it was a tough job market. Think about the time Trump took the White House. The Republicans controlled both the House and the Senate at the time. So you had several hundreds, if not thousands, of Obama people looking for new jobs. Yeah. And it was really, really tough. Like I remember I was on unemployment, and I was applying for everything and anything. I literally was not even thinking about if this is a job I want to do. I just needed a job. Before I worked for Obama, I did trade policy. And my dissertation at the London School of Economics was on trade policy. Okay. And so I always kind of kept up on trade policy. And at the time, there was this crazy outbreak of bird flu in Asia. Yeah. In Asia, avian influenza kind of happens every year, every winter. But in 2016, there was a especially bad strain of bird flu. And the government started to kill all these chicken flocks because they wanted to stop the spread of the bird flu. Yeah. But obviously, if you kill all the chickens, you don't have enough eggs, right? So it resulted in this crazy shortage of eggs. And when the shortage happened, the price of a carton of eggs legit went from $3 a carton to like $10 a carton. Wow. Right? It was insane. And so I saw that. I was reading the news, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then I started reading that the Asian governments like South Korea were reducing tariff levels. So like tariff is like usually a tax they put on imports. Yep. So it was originally like a 23%. So every time someone would import eggs to Korea, they would add 23% tax, which makes the eggs really expensive, right? Yep. But they lowered it to 0% temporarily because there was such a crazy shortage. Yeah. They're like, we need to import eggs. Yeah.
And then I see the light shining right now.
I know, right?
Like it's just getting brighter.
Right? And then the government started to subsidize the freight cost. So the freight cost is just like shipping it from point A to point B, right? Because they were so bad. So a light bulb went off, and I actually started, I drove to a Costco, and I looked at how much a 36-pack of eggs was. It was like $3.40 or whatever, right? $3.40, $10, $3.40. Like any arbitrage opportunity here. We call it arbitrage.
We're following the vision.
And so I started cold calling farms, bro. Like legit, I sat down and I started looking up farms, egg farms, and just started calling. And it just so happened the first farm that answered the phone and would even have a conversation with me was Wilcox Farms here in Washington. Wow. Roy, Washington. Wow. And it was Andy Wilcox. Wow. Andy Wilcox, it's like a 5th-generation family-owned operation. Andy Wilcox answers the phone, and he goes, I was like, there's this opportunity. Like you should export eggs. I'll help you. Like, just give me a shot.
Curious. At this time, did you have the ducks in a row and everything? Or
No,
was
dog. This was
this is just like a real cold call.
100% fake it till you make it. Seriously. Like I was like, I'd be like, I can buy biters in Korea, right?
Yeah.
And I'll arrange all the transportation and logistics. Like, what did I know about transportation?
Yeah,
and
I
logistics?
love this. I love these type of stories because it's so amazing. Yeah.
For real.
And so the guy literally, I do this like pitch, and I kid you not, at the end of the pitch, he goes, "Who the hell are you?" And I was like, do the pitch again. And I was like, look, I'm from Seattle. Let me come and see you in person, right?
Yeah.
So I literally flew to Seattle, drove down to Roy Washington, met these guys, and they gave me a shot. They were like, okay, well, if you can find buyers in Korea, we'll sell you eggs. So I was like, okay. So at this point, I gotta like put up or shut up, right? And so, I scrambled, looked for buyers in Korea. I finally found someone who had a supermarket in Korea, just like a grocery store, and I said, hey, I can get you eggs, right? So I literally put eggs on a pallet, right?
Yeah.
And I put them on a plane, like the underbelly of a plane, and I shipped them to Korea.
Okay.
Total disaster, bro.
Oh man.
For all the obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're fragile.
Yep.
Like they need to be refrigerated.
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
I was an idiot. Like I was like, and at the time I was thinking, oh man, no wonder no one is doing this from here because it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like logistically impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like really, and I was out like 10K, and that was like a lot for me back then.
Yeah.
Like I was just, I was on unemployment.
Yeah.
That was like most of my savings.
Yeah.
And so I was about to fold. And then I was just thinking, and I was like, man, how do I make this work?
Yeah.
And so what I ended up doing is I actually changed my business, and I pivoted from selling eggs to grocery stores and like supermarkets to consumers like you and me, to selling eggs to businesses like bakeries, restaurants, right? And so the difference there is that they use eggs as an ingredient in their product. So let's say you're making bread or cookies, and you need eggs for the dough, right?
Yep.
So why does that matter? Because they crack the eggs anyway.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Wow.
So my pivot was, let's crack them here in the U.S. and just send them in liquid form.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So when people hear about my egg export story, they think I shipped like shelled eggs.
Yeah.
That's not what I did.
Okay. Break it down.
I had the farms crack the eggs,
Okay.
right? And they would put the egg whites and the egg yolks in these 30-pound vacuum sealed packs, basically.
Okay.
Right? And now they're not fragile because they're already cracked. And now I can actually put them in a container and on a boat instead of a plane. So now you brought down transportation costs.
Yep.
Yeah.
The bakeries and the confectionaries and the restaurants love it because now they just need to rip open this thing and throw it in with whatever they're making, right? So it's a convenience factor there. It's a value add product, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I started exporting liquid eggs without the shell. It was a huge hit over there. And a lot of the big bakeries and confectionaries and food manufacturers. And then here's the other crazy part is that obviously an egg is, this is so wonky, egg yolk and egg white, right? So if you separate the egg whites and the egg yolks, you have now 3 products.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
you can
that vertical
sell
integration.
Yeah, yeah.
Right there. I see it.
You diversify. It's 3 products in one. So you can sell egg whites, you can sell egg yolks, or you can sell whole eggs, right? So like the mayonnaise manufacturers will take the egg whites, and the ice cream manufacturers will take like yolk.
This is amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so in 2 years, I did this between 2017 and 2019 when I ran for office, and I exported like 2.5 million pounds of eggs.
Yeah, I read about that. I
Yeah.
read that it was over 2.5 million.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah,
man.
it was a lot of eggs, man, and it got to a point where Wilcox actually couldn't supply it because it was too much volume. So I ended up going to egg farms in like Thompsonville, New York, and like Esterville, Iowa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gainesville, Georgia, like places I've actually never been to.
Yeah.
You gotta keep the show
Right?
going.
Yeah. And so it was a really niche business.
Yeah.
And then obviously in 2019 there was an opportunity to run for the port.
Yeah.
So I ran, and when I got elected, the optics of being an exporter and also being a port commissioner was like, like not a true conflict of interest, but like a little sketchy, right?
Yeah,
So,
I'm curious though.
Yeah.
Man, you broke that down, man. That was
that was an amazing.
that was
story.
amazing, man. That was amazing. And salute, man. Salute,
For real.
salute to that time, man. But you did touch on kind of the transition from the political space with the Obama administration, then, being unemployed and then figuring out what the next move is. I did want to kind of get your insight or to provide tips and advice for people, because you said it was somewhat of a low point, and I think we're all humans here. We all have had low points in between pivots, right? Do you have advice and tips for people on how to just keep that forward motion when it feels like, damn, I have nothing going for me right now? What would you say to that?
Here's the interesting thing about not just entrepreneurship, but I think generally about, like life and opportunity. Like, I think I was able to do that business because I was at my lowest point, right? Like, it's kind of like the bigger you are, the harder you fall, right? Or the higher you are, the furthest you fall. I feel like if I had other things going for me, like another job or something, I wouldn't have even like thought about it. But it was because I had nothing else to lose, right? Because it was like, like, all right, like I'm unemployed and this is a shot in the dark, but what else am I going to do? That I took that shot, right? And sometimes like you're right about the whole like opportunity meets preparation and opportunity aspect of things as well, but sometimes when you're at your lowest point, that's when you can afford to take the most risk, because you're not losing, you're not putting up as much, right? And so that was my mindset at the time when I started the business. I think I've always wanted to maybe try starting a business, because my parents were entrepreneurs. They ran their own business for so many years, and maybe that had an influence on me. But as far as like the mentality, the mental state I was in, it was kind of like I have very little to lose and a lot to gain if this works out, right?
It's a great perspective.
Yeah, and as far as niche is concerned, look, like I started the business and I failed the first time. Like the first iteration of the business was a total failure, right? But I think that a lot of people give up too soon. I really think that, and a lot of people see their first iteration is not working, and they just like call it quits. Right. But oftentimes, and I think what gives people an edge in business is like they have a niche. Something that they specialize in, something that makes them different, something that, makes them stand out as a business, right? And oftentimes it takes iterations to get to that niche. You got to figure out what makes you different, right? What makes the UpNUp podcast different than all the thousands of millions of podcasts out there, right? What makes this shop different from this shop, right? And oftentimes it takes failure, many iterations, to get to that point where you're like, got it. Like this is what
it imitates life. Like
totally.
you grow and you learn things about yourself. And then you start to refine yourself. You start to become better, right? So 100%. It's no different, I feel like.
Totally. And that was me. I mean, fortunately, it only took one failure for me. And some people fail multiple times to get to that point where they're like, all right, this is my jam. This is what makes me different and unique and special. And you market that, right? And that's what puts you up in that, the ladder of success.
I
love that. And I think like even paying attention to the loss will lessen pretty much. So it's like if you really didn't pay attention to how it failed, I don't think it would have been like a lot of people won't know how to pivot.
So you got to learn from it, right? It's really a process of elimination, right? Like I wanted to export eggs. All right. I exported it through planes. That was bad. Eliminate that, right? Like shelled eggs. No good. And you just kind of go through a point where like you whittle it down to where like, here we are. This is it. This is the baby, right? And then that's what you run with.
No, that's a message, man. That's a message, man. Because everybody's trying, everybody's hustling, everybody's they're pursuing something, man. And it's like you got to be able to stay locked in, pay attention, be aware of how it's growing as it's growing in real time.
And the other thing is like, I think for me, I mentioned that in the beginning I was kind of faking it till you make it. But I think for me, what a lot of what contributed to my success, not just in the business, but also in politics, quite frankly, is that like you need to find people, around you, or bring people into your circle that can help you find that success, right? And like, did I know about transportation and logistics, how to ship something from point A to point B in a mass, no. But there are people out there that are already doing it, right? And so while you're figuring out what your niche is, what your specialty is, you also call upon those people who have done something similar or in that field and learn from them, right? I think a lot of people are afraid to reach out, ask for help or advice, and they end up reinventing the wheel, right? They end up doing things. And here's the thing is like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If there's a version of what you're trying to do already out there, build on that. Don't go back to square one. Why would you do that? You know, that's just a waste of your time.
It's the identity factor too. I think, like you said, the wheel's the wheel, but you can make the wheel your wheel.
Totally.
Right? And present it in a way.
Your version of the wheel.
Exactly.
100%.
I love that. I love that message, bro. Now let's take it to Sam saying, all right, I want to run. like, you know, again, it's like back to, I want to go to London, or, you know, that whole thing that I want to do it. What kind of sparked the interest and like pushed you to like, obviously you were already determined. We could tell at that point. But like, what inspired that, man, to say I want to run for the Port of Seattle? Yeah.
So I think the first point at which I was aware of the opportunity was when, you know, my predecessor, Courtney Gregoire, announced that she wasn't running again. So it was an open seat. And if you know anything about the Port, it's very rare that there's an open seat. Usually these people are there forever. A lot of these people are there forever, right? They're just career, you know, commissioners or politicians. And so, you know, when I found out, I was like, you know, whatever. What really sparked it for me was people started calling me and saying, hey, man, like, there's this open seat, and, you know, you worked for Obama, you are in the export game. Like, this is a cookie cutter position for you, man.
And how old were you at this time, just for reference?
29.
Okay, 29.
Yeah.
Just so people
when I first was thinking about it, I was 28, you know, when I declared I was 29. So, you know, like, dude, I'm 28. I'm not married. I don't have kids. Wasn't sure if I ever wanted to actually run for office someday, right? I'd always gone the political appointee route, like you know, working for politicians, not being a politician myself, right? And so it wasn't something that I had really thought about doing in my relative youth. But again, going back to what I did with my business and thought process, like, what do I have to lose? Right. And I think when you're young, in your 20s and 30s, like, you have so much runway in your life. You can take those risks, and you can fall on your face, and you can learn from it, grow from it, and it won't, like, if I had lost in 2019, okay, I would have just brushed myself off and kept living, right? It's not like it's fatal for my career. Right. If anything, it got my name out there and all that stuff, right? And so in 2019, I you know, I felt like, okay, I think I have the credentials, right? And you know, I started calling around, and I started doing research into the other candidates. There were 7 candidates in my race. It was a very crowded race. And my opponent in general was the mayor of Bellevue.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So he was a known entity. He was a known entity. And so there are a lot of people who counted me out. There are like, a lot of people like, I'm not sure if you can pull it off. You know, who's this? And I had just come back to Seattle to start my business. And so quite frankly, I'd been away from Seattle for about 7 or 8 years because I hadn't been here since high school. There's a lot of people are like, who is this kid? Like, why would you think that you could run countywide and win? Right. But they didn't. I mean, they just, you know, I feel like when you go to DC and work in the nation's capital and in the politics, it's a rite of passage, and you learn some shit. And people were discounting what I already knew and the connections that I had. Underestimating me. And to be quite frank, that fed the fire. I just, you know, there was an element of wanting to prove people wrong that, you know, that a 29-year-old person of color can run countywide for the first time and win. Right. And you know, I think my credentials and my message to the voters resonated with people. My slogan for my campaign was a port for the people. And my theme was, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats. And that was my message. It's like the Port of Seattle, we're going through this tremendous growth in this region, and that growth and opportunity should be reaching everyone. And that resonated with voters. And so I won in 2019, and, you know, the rest is history. You know, you mentioned it earlier, but, you know, youngest ever. That was never the goal, but that was the outcome.
Yeah, man. No, that's major, bro. And I actually saw an interview you did with Asian Hustle Network.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which was great. And in it, you touched on kind of the aspect of being in a leadership role. And now it's not about you anymore. No. It's not about, I'm trying to figure out this niche, or it's like, I'm serving the people.
That's right.
Can you touch on kind of that position of servitude? Like, what changed for you in that moment to where you realize, okay, it's not about me anymore? Did you have like that moment? I mean, obviously, you know, prior to going into it, but until you get faced with it, like, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you realize that the things that you do as a politician, as a leader, as a policymaker, has such a huge reverberation around the community, right? I think for me, the biggest, the point of inflection was, again, the anti-Asian hate and a lot of the racial reckoning that we went through during the pandemic. And at first, I thought, being a port commissioner is cool. Running the airport and the seaport is cool, and it's very niche, and it's not sexy maybe, but it's influential work.
Yeah.
But during the pandemic, when I found myself marching with the Black Lives Matter movement, in South Seattle, and I found myself in the International District, screaming at the top of my lungs, to stop Asian hate. That was a huge turning point for me, and I realized, shit, this is not about. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear here, but
no, go ahead.
Okay,
no, you're good.
This is no longer. This is greater than myself.
Yeah.
Right. This is not about me. It's about all the people in my community, but also communities of color in general that have been marginalized, that have been underserved for so many years, that don't have a seat at the table, that are underrepresented in some of the most powerful decision-making bodies, right? Whether it's the port, the legislature, the Congress, right? And so, even now when I make decisions about, who to support or what I'm going to do next, it's no longer about me. It's like, all right, well, is there someone else?
Yeah.
Can someone else step up and do this? And if not, can I do it? Right. And that's why I think the representation is so crucial.
Yeah.
You saw it during the pandemic. You see it throughout history.
Yeah.
When you don't, there's a saying in politics: if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu.
Oh man, I never heard that one. But
yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
but it's so true.
Yeah,
right. If you're not in the room where the decisions are being made, that decision is going to be made for you.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Wow.
History has shown time and time again.
Yeah.
When your people are not in the room, you are the victim. And that's why I appreciate people like Gary Locke, Norm Mineta, people who have come before me, who have represented us.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like it's part of our duty as the next generation to keep that going.
Yeah.
And grow it.
Most definitely, bro. No, it's important work, man. And you know it before you get into it, but once you get into it, it opens.
You feel it though, right? Because now people are coming to you.
Yeah.
Right? They're asking for your help.
Yeah.
And it happened during the pandemic when the minority businesses at the airport were like, Sam, we're about to go under. Like, we're not getting any sales. I'm talking about like the food vendors and the restaurants, right? When the foot traffic dipped at the airport to historically low levels, they were not, and all the restaurants in this area pivoted to like DoorDash and Uber Eats. They all pivoted to delivery.
Yeah.
A restaurant behind security in an airport can't do that.
Yeah.
They can't deliver.
Yeah.
Right? Because those drivers can't get behind security.
Exactly.
So for them, it was a double whammy. They were not only experiencing a drop in business because no one was flying, but they also just couldn't pivot. And those minority businesses that don't have as much working capital or the financial wherewithal to try and weather the storm, who did they reach out to? The minority commissioner, the only minority commissioner at the time. I got calls, and they were like, if I was white, would they have been comfortable calling me on my personal cell?
That's
I
real.
doubt it.
That's
I doubt it.
Yeah.
That's real.
But the first guy who called me was an Asian American business owner at the airport who was desperate, and he was like, "Look, I need you to meet with us, and we need to figure out a way to get through this." So I literally drove down to SeaTac Airport in March, and I had this roundtable discussion about like, okay, what do y'all need? What can we do to help? Right? I don't think I highly doubt that would have happened in any other circumstances where they didn't have representation.
Yeah. No, that's just one of the many reasons
Exactly.
why representation is important, bro.
And I'm happy
powerful.
to report not a single minority business went under during the pandemic. They're all still there.
It's a blessing.
Really proud of that.
Real.
Yeah. Nah, man, that's
Shout
a blessing,
out to you
man.
for that, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
man.
Yeah.
And being in the space you're in, obviously we've seen a lot of, not just in Seattle, but just in general, we've seen a lot of growth and evolution in terms of the image of government and politics.
Yeah.
Starting with Obama, if you want to start there too,
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's changing in terms of how people view politics now because they could see themselves in it? Like whether it's yourself or even Gurmai or people that are in the community that are in those positions now. Like how have you seen it shifting?
Well, I think, again, going back to the representation point, is that there are increasingly more younger politicians today. Like you mentioned Gurmai Zahalai, Joe Nguyen. You know, like we have a crew, Brandon Hershey over at the Seattle School Board. There's a crew of us that are kind of like under sub 40, I would say. I mean, and I think it helps when you have those younger voices, because, you know, when you see someone who looks like you, who speaks your lingo and or has similar experiences as you, like, that piques your interest, right? So I do feel like there is a turning of the tides in terms of the interest engagement level that there, you know, in local politics. I feel like, you know, for lack of a better term, like kids these days are a little more woke, right? Like, you know, I think that's partially because, you know, social media, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, everyone's getting information in these like 14, 30-second sound bites, and you know, things are just blowing up a lot more. You know, I think. You know, I read this crazy quote that like hit me, was like on police brutality, and people were like, "Yo, why is police brutality so bad? These like getting so much worse." Yeah. And the guy was like, "It's not getting worse. It's getting filmed."
Exactly.
It's been there.
It's been there.
But now we have the platforms to get that out there, and people are becoming more aware of it, right? So it's a combination of youth, younger people getting more involved in politics, but also I think the technology and the platforms that exist today are allowing younger folks. Like I talk to high school kids these days. Like, and I know you guys talk to high school folks. Like, they're so much more like aware of things than I ever was. Like sometimes I have conversations with high school kids. I'm like, oh,
you learn a lot more from them.
Shit. Like, like I would not have that.
Nope, I know exactly. We did an event a couple years back. We did an event workshop at a high school, and we're coming in as like, you know, the ones who are supposed to be like conducting, teaching, leading, and all that, and we were just our mouths were shut. We're just over here like, damn.
Yeah, I mean,
you guys are teaching us.
100%. I go in there, I'm like, oh, these guys know this already. Like, I'm super impressed with the youth today. And I think
likewise,
people like Gurmai and y'all are doing a great job of getting kids engaged more earlier, right? And my hope is that, like, you know, I was 29, but I would love to see, you know, a 22-year-old, you know, port commissioner someday or whatever, and or an elected or whatever, and, you know, and I think it only helps to get more of us, because the reality is these decisions on a high level are being made by out-of-touch politicians who just don't understand the world today. In many ways, there are times where I'm in the room with a bunch of old white dudes. And I'm like, man, you're so out of touch. I have no idea. Right? Like it's frustrating, right?
I can imagine.
And I think one thing that I love is that, you know, ever since I was elected to the port, I have new two colleagues, Hamdi Mohammed and Toshika Hazagawa. Shout out to the fam.
Shout out to the squad.
Shout out to the port squad. Hashtag port squad. But it makes a huge difference, because not only do we now have a first time ever POC majority port commission, 3 out of 5. But when it comes to issues and policies, like, it's so much easier to do the work because I don't need to spend so much time explaining it. Right? Like, my lived experience is so similar and or adjacent to their lived experience that, like, when I'm in the room with my staff or with people who are trying to form policies, like, there are times where I just look at Hamdi and I look at Toshiko, and we just know what each other's are thinking, like, you know, right? Or like one of my colleagues will start asking a line of questioning, and I know exactly where that line of questioning is coming from, right? And I can piggyback off of that, right? I don't need to sit there or go to a room in the back and explain to them, this is my perspective.
No, that's crazy you said that. I was watching a clip earlier today where I forgot the dude's name's Ari. He's a Ari Melble, I forgot his name, but he was breaking down Jay-Z's most recent featured verse on Khaled's album, and like pretty much he broke it down, like dissected the verse, but pretty much he was just saying how, like, damn, even this guy who's a billionaire, it's still having to explain to like white society why this shit is all messed up, no matter how high you go. It's like you said, it's like we're tired of explaining and repeating ourselves constantly, like, bro, like, we've done this already. It's all there for you. So
I mean, something as simple as like translating signs to different languages. Something that, you know, maybe if you grew up in a white household, you never think, oh, like, English is maybe the primary language, but like people in this area speak Vietnamese, Chinese, Korean, Arabic, Somali, right? And so, like, when I was like, you know, we should translate these human trafficking awareness signs to the most commonly spoken languages. The fact that I even had to, like, suggest that.
Yeah,
It's
like
just
obvious.
like, if you're being trafficked into this country, how you gonna? What's the likelihood you can speak English and read it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Man.
With Hamdi and Toshiko, they're like, yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that is stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's why I think having more of us in those seats, it's gonna make a huge difference, man. And
it already is.
Yeah. You can see it in Seattle. We live in a bubble. Honestly, I think we're blessed in many ways.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of representation already. But I do feel like the tides are shifting, and that there's a turnover, a generational change of the guards that's happening.
Yeah, man.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like even us from the outside looking in, we're like, even when we just see you guys, we're like, all right, we feel a little bit
comfortable.
Yeah, it's way more comfortable for us, So
totally.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. It's man, we could sit here and chop it up with you all day, man.
Yeah, for real.
But no, overall, man, the contributions have been made, and like I said at the beginning of the show, like our platform is for the next generation, right?
Absolutely.
We got to lay it down now so they can pick it up later, right?
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Now, well, you can ask where people can follow and tap in.
So,
you don't know already.
Find you social media.
Yeah.
Where can they tap in?
My Instagram is Sam H Cho, no spaces. My Twitter is Sam Cho Tweets with an S at the end. I'm not on TikTok yet. Yeah, I'm resisting. We'll see. We'll see how it. When I'm up for re-election, I may have to tap into that.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm resisting.
Okay.
It's all good. I try to resist for so long. I just got on, but I understand.
Yeah.
It's a process, man. It's a process.
It's too many to keep track of. Like I got to repost everything on 3 different platforms. It's like it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. No, that's real work.
It is. Yeah. It's been crazy.
Okay, so that's where they can find you. Before we get to the wrap up of the show, I did want to ask, what are you most excited for the future? Like, if are you a manifester? Do you be manifesting a lot?
Yeah, man.
So
kind of going back to our experience collectively over the last 2.5 years when we saw the I hate to keep going back to the the Black Lives Matter movement, but that the last 2 years. That I think it has the most profound impact on me and how I perceive things. One thing that I'm really bullish on and really excited about is actually solidarity and allyship amongst communities. I'll tell you, when I was in the International District, protesting, anti-Asian hate, the Black community showed up. Like Larry Gossett was literally sitting right behind me in solidarity, right? And I think, I talked to folks, across the communities, and there's definitely, I feel like, an appetite to figure out how moving forward these communities of color can work with each other, right? Whether it's the Asian American community, the Black community, and the Hispanic community, and all other ethnic minorities, a lot of the immigrant communities, and I'm really bullish on it because there's actually been, and most people may not be aware of this, but there's actually been like this huge push to divide us, especially in the Asian community. I don't know if you all know what's going on in the Asian community, but there's a lot of divisiveness in the Asian community. And I think it's really important because, in order for us to succeed collectively, we need that allyship and solidarity. There's this, and not to go too deep into it, but like, I feel like Asian Americans are painted in a certain way. There's this thing called the model minority myth. You may have heard about it. But basically, there's this idea that like Asian immigrants and Asians are the model minority because they immigrate here, they assimilate, they go to good schools, they don't commit crimes, they work in corporate America, and they put their head down and work hard. That's the model, right? I honestly think that, when I think about my family's experience and why we came here, we came here for the American dream, right? The vast majority of immigrants come here for the American dream. There's nothing wrong with that, right? We all want success, right? And with success comes privilege, right? And I think a lot of, even my family and a lot of Asians, like, they want to make money, they want to move up the corporate ladder, and they want to find that success, right? But there's, and we love privilege. Like, everyone likes to be privileged, and I feel very privileged to be where I am. But I guess where I'm going with this and what I say is, like, no matter how much we work as Asian Americans, as people of color, we can never be white. We can never adopt white privilege. Right. Sean Good, actually, y'all know Sean Good. He over at Choose 180. He calls this white adjacency. Right, where like people like Asians or communities of color have this illusion that somehow if you like work really hard and work up the ladder of success, that you can somehow adopt the privileges of being white. Right. And that's how the divisiveness is happening. Is that there are factions of political parties and saying, hey, you know, like do this, you know, like work your way up, and you can join the good old boys club. Right. And it's just a total myth. Right. And that's why I hate the model minority myth. And this perspective that if you work hard enough in life, that you can enter this exclusive club of privilege that, you know, and even if that were true, you know, I tell this to people in my community all the time. It's that, you know, no matter, you know, how much you succeed, you know, as a community, we should never be willing to succeed at the expense of other communities of color. Does that make sense? So
that's
like,
real.
you know what I'm saying? So like, look, I want Asians to succeed. Right. But our success as a community should never come instead of the black community or the Latinx community. Right. We should not be we should not be okay with stepping over our black brothers and sisters in order to pursue that success. That's right. We need to be succeeding collectively. Right. Lock arms, move forward together. Right. And I think what's happened during the pandemic, and it's full circle, is that we saw that, you know, during the Black Lives Matter movement, we have so much more fighting to do. But the Asian community woke up to the fact that, wait a second, you told us we were the model minority. You told us that we were different. But you guys are hating on us right now. Because of a virus in a country that's, you know, across the Pacific Ocean. And there was this awakening within our community that was like, okay, so we're not actually that good old boys club that you invited us to. That's not real. And I think this is an opportunity for our communities to really work with each other to figure out, okay, how do we move forward together? And so I'm really, really excited. I think that's why, you know, folks like Gurmai, Joe, Brandon Hersey, and this newer, younger group of politicians is so amped up and involved in the community, because we really see it. We really see this opportunity to work across communities and move the agenda forward.
Now, we've come a long way in terms of being able to communicate, first and foremost, have dialogue across cultures. You know, there was a time, you know, when people were actually physically blocked off from each other, you know, to where these conversations can happen. So I'm glad you touched on that, because I think it is important that we all extend empathy to each other in a way where there's understanding that could be gained, because everybody's suffering in their own right in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
But it's about understanding and how we can help each other. So that's real.
I think one of my staffers at the port, you know, I spoke at this Blacks in Government gala. They asked me to keynote, and I was nervous because I'd never spoken to an all-black audience. And so I expressed this to them. I was just very candid. I said, hey, man, I'm really nervous. I don't want to say anything wrong. I don't want to slip up or offend. Because I don't know what it's like to be black, and you all don't know what it's like to be Asian. So for me to be talking about the experience or you know, whatever, was a very... it was scary. And the guy, I mean, I'll never forget this. He's like, you'll never understand our struggle as black and African Americans in this country, but you do understand the struggle. And I was like, oh man, you're right. You know? And so like, I don't know exactly how y'all feel or experience the world, you know, in your identities, but I'm adjacent to that. Like I'm there's a parallel track here, and I do understand the struggle, and that's really all you need, you know, for communities to work together. You know, you don't need, you just need a rhyme.
Right.
And
I like that. I like that, man. It's all perspective based, man, too, to a degree.
Absolutely.
So wow, man. Dropping them gems, man.
Dude,
dropping them gems.
I didn't expect to go
you're a beast,
deep,
man.
but
that's what he does, man. Now, before we get you out of here, we always ask our guests this question. So if you can, my brother, what's one word to describe what keeps you on the up and up, and why?
One word. For me, and my MO is opportunity. It really is. And I might sound a little cliche right now, but you know, for me, in my family's experience, it has always been, this country gave us an opportunity to that American dream, to find that success, right? Someone in D.C. gave me an opportunity to work for Obama, right? Wilcox Farms gave me an opportunity to start my export business, right? You know, and so for me, you know, we talked a lot about paying it forward. You know, one of my mentors is Norm Mineta. He was, you know, an icon in the Asian American community. And he used to always say, Sam, if you've ever had the great fortune of making it to the top, and I don't consider myself to be at the top yet, right? But I still feel like I'm in a point of privilege. He says, if you ever make it to the top, it's your job to press the elevator button and send the elevator back down. Right? And for me and the port and my role as a politician and as a leader in whatever capacity beyond being a politician, it's what opportunities can I create for others so that they can replicate the success that I've had or that others have for themselves. Yeah.
I love it.
That. Yeah.
Opportunity, man.
Opportunity. It's all about opportunity. And you know, it's up to each individual to choose, to pick and embrace it. And, you know, whether you succeed or not is your own volition.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, like I said, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Yeah. And as politicians, I feel like our job as politicians is to create opportunity and prepare people to meet those.
Well said, brother. Well said, bro.
Very well said.
Yeah, man. Well, for those listening and watching, viewers, family members, obviously, we like to call them, hopefully this was an episode that you guys can pick up from, right? Learn from, help you move forward, keep it on the up and up, keep going, keep grinding, keep hustling. Sam, we thank you, man.
Thank you.
You got support with us here at the Up and Up always, man.
Appreciate
you know that.
Definitely.
Man, with that being said, I think it's safe to say, man, Sam Cho, the commissioner himself, is officially a member of the Up and Up. Can we get a round of applause?
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you too.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yo, what up? It's Rubino.
And this DJ Erm.
We hope you enjoyed that episode and that now you have a better understanding of what it means to live life on the up and up.
Thanks for listening, and until the next one,
Keep it on the up and up.